This first things first, what is a normal day for a caseworker?
There's not really a normal day. In my experience, I would go in usually before 8, 7:30, 7. Usually in the mornings you have court or other case meetings, so like child and family team meetings to talk about the kids, or meetings with the parents. Then the afternoons you would go visit the kids on your caseload. You kind of make your own schedule, but it's hard to do with kind of arranging schedules with everyone. After I was done visiting kids, I usually did case notes for that day, usually for an hour or two, ending around 7 or 8 at night. Always a lot happening, and that doesn't really account for emergencies or needing to move a child that day. I was working at that time about, I'd say 50 to 65 hours a week with no overtime.
Oh, so it's salary and it's just like...
There was an overtime pool, and if you were on the list, some people got it, some people didn't.
So the caseload is pretty hefty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the height, I had 75 kids.
How do you manage that?
Working weekends, working overtime. It got heavy. It's not an easy job by any means. I worked by just scheduling myself as much as possible and trying to keep to that schedule. I knew at the end of the day I would enter my case notes, so I did what I could that day and then enter all the notes so it's all documented.
How many of these kids, I guess, how does it range from kids in group homes, kids in foster homes? Like, was it all across the board?
It was across the board. I'd say for group homes, it was mostly kids over 9. The younger kiddos usually had a foster home. And then some teenagers had family members that they could live with or a foster that was established, but that was more rare.
What are the main challenges with kids who are living in group homes?
Kids living in group homes aren't in a normal family environment. They're not experiencing things that children should experience. They don't have that person that they can go to usually, and that's one thing. As a case manager, we become that person for the minor, and it's a lot of like behavioral issues. I think with group homes, it's not always well staffed or staff that are experienced in trauma-informed care, the things that those kids need at that time.
So the ratio is not reasonable from staff member to kids in the group homes?
No.
I mean, what are some examples of numbers you've seen that you were just concerned about right off the bat?
I think usually ratio is okay. They are licensed for a certain amount of kids, and that's usually what they're staffed for. I know there were some group homes I went into that had like one staff member present, and that's not sufficient.
One for a whole group home?
1 or 2, I think, and it was during the middle of the day, so usually kids were at school.
Okay.
But it really varied, and all the group homes were different.
When you see coverage of teens running away from group homes, and obviously there have been many stories where it's ended terribly, ended tragically, but are you surprised at the runaway issues? Why do kids run away?
I'm not surprised. I think as a teenager, any normal teenager wants to have some control over their life. They want to feel seen and loved and have a space that's their own. So when you're living in a shared room with another minor, that's hard. On top of that, when staff aren't trained or empathetic to a child's trauma, that takes a toll. Also, as teenagers, typically it's really rare that they don't want to be with their parents, or they don't want out or to escape from their situation because that's not what they chose for themselves. It was always hard going into group homes because I've understood being a teenager that wants to make their choices and feel accepted somewhere, and it may not be that group home.
So what were the main issues that kids would bring to you about their time in these situations?
A lot of them had issues with staff. I don't like that staff member, or they said this to me, or other peers in the group. I had a few specific kids that always had issues with their peers, and it is hard, thinking of being in their shoes and living with people that are your age, going through difficult times as well, and thinking of having to experience that. And it was a lot of conflict, I'd say.
What do you think DCS needs to do better?
A lot, if I'm being honest. Having an unusual amount of cases is really impossible. Like, as a caseworker, you are the person that is running the case. You're doing all the court hearings. You're making sure everyone in the family has services that they need. You're making sure that you meet all check marks to make sure that that family has the best opportunity to succeed. A lot of people I worked with didn't have degrees in social work or the areas that are applicable. Like, someone with a
other
degree
specialists, they didn't have that experience that you had.
Yeah.
So the benchmark when you're trying to apply for the job, really, what are they asking for?
Just bachelor's degree.
Bachelor's degree, period.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to have a specialty with children, education, or anything like that, social work.
Bachelor's degree.
I don't know if you've been keeping track, but obviously we've had some pretty serious tragedies recently, this year alone. Not that you can diagnose each one of them, but just generally, what's your reaction to some of the news we've had to deal with this year?
I think Emily Pike stood out to me. We in Arizona were surrounded by tribal land, and several tribes, just Phoenix alone, are surrounded by tribes. She should have probably been on her tribal land, if not her own. She should have been with a neighboring tribe, and not in a group home. I know I read how she had run several times. It's clear the group home wasn't working for her or meeting her needs, and I don't know the specifics of the case or what the caseworker was doing, but I do think Emily should have been placed somewhere else that would meet her needs.
And if you run away 3 to 4 times to 5 times, at some point the staff or whoever her caseworker is on the tribe should address, well, what do we need to do to get her to stop running away? Why is she unhappy? Why is she feeling suicidal? And then you add in the fact that the tribe has custody of her, not DCS, and DCS has no record of her. It sounds like that's been going on for a long time, where tribal kids, it's not like they exist to DCS because it's not DCS's liability, but this is a DCS licensed home. So she sort of comes into the DCS world, but does not exist in the DCS system, as strange as it sounds.
Yeah. See, I know DCS has an ICWA unit specifically. I don't know if they had her case or not, or what the situation was. But I think there's a reason ICWA exists.
Yeah, and I believe that the director said that. I don't think ICWA, for whatever reason, I can go back and look at the transcripts why they just didn't have any record of her. She was placed because San Carlos Apache had the contract with Sacred Journey, so they placed her there. But DCS doesn't necessarily know who she is. When she runs off, it's up to the group home to notify the tribe and law enforcement, of course. But DCS has now come back and said, Sacred Journey, you need to notify all of us now if this happens again. Well, too late. But it just seems that disconnect between tribal jurisdiction and the state.
And it's after leaving DCS, I went on to work for a tribe in the area. And
what did you learn from that?
Cultural connection, specifically for Native American children, and being with people of their same culture and who exist from their community and way of life that they know is extremely important. I think the focus on family, think that's somewhere where DCS falls short very frequently of prioritizing keeping the child with family as much as possible, when possible, you know. And jurisdictional issues are just difficult to navigate.
Yeah, because she was really homesick. I mean, just watching body camera video, she was crying and just wanted to be home. Mm-hmm. So I think you have a point there where if someone has never left the tribe their entire life, and now they're thrust into Mesa alone with no family, that alone is the culture shock.
Yeah, that
for them.
Total different way of life. It's just completely different, and it's not comparable.
And coming off a alleged sexual assault that was basically not really investigated. We don't know where that stands, and in a sense, it's like she was punished for being a victim, sent away. Caseworker turnover rate, you talked about the caseload, but any idea, really what for you was the trigger to say, I can't work here anymore?
For me, I was burnt out. I felt like I was navigating a system that is not built for families. And I say that at the time that I left, the service waitlist for parenting classes was 7 months.
And explain it. So parents get these classes and then leads to reunification?
So when cases come in, we assess the family and the parents and see what's needed in order for the child to be reunified to a safe home. Some parents need substance abuse counseling, domestic violence counseling, parenting classes just for basic parenting skills. It just really depends on a case-by-case basis, but it's not one size fits all. So they're assessed in the beginning.
And who's deciding, here's the prescription for you, here's what you need to do?
Case manager.
Okay, so that would be you.
Yeah.
And you would say, okay, this parent needs to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that, it would take months to even just start doing
the service. Yeah.
To learn anything for that parent.
And
you had no control over that.
No control. Nothing I could do, nothing I could say even to justify the fact that the state had a 7-month wait list for parenting courses.
So what are we waiting on? Like, who has the powers to speed up the process, or is there a lack of resources there, or classes? What is that backlog?
It seemed like it was a lack of resources based on like parent educators. So there was a wait list, and as those educators became available, they would take the next on the wait list. But the wait list is huge.
Wow.
And parenting classes, I would say, was one of the most popular needs for services. So I think also we're dealing with a lot of families that have faced the child welfare system in the past. Parents that have left the system and then their child ends up in the system.
Can you kind of explain it? That's interesting. Explain it. So parents that have grown up themselves in the system, they have children.
And those children can end up in the system.
Because of their let's say for example, maybe it's substance abuse and kid gets taken away. They've like repeated whatever maybe their parent did.
That, and they never grew up in a home that showed them what parenting was or taught them what needs to happen to successfully parent. And I think generational trauma of, say, a parent's a former foster youth and they have a child, that's stressful in itself because you never knew a childhood that either was safe or consistent, or you were in the system, and then you're raising a child, and what do you do with that?
So the cycle just continues. The backlog grows. The staffing is not sufficient, whether it's in group homes, whether it's with specialists.
Yeah, and I think as a caseworker too, you're dealing with child trauma, parent trauma, generational, systemic, all these layers of trauma, and so you're also taking on that. Because it's not easy to go in and hear back-to-back stories of what children have experienced or what parents are experiencing, and then immediately hop to the next case because there's another thing to do.
Which leads to your burnout.
Yep.
So you worked in this system. Would you say it's broken?
Yes.
100%, very clear.
Without a doubt, I think major changes need to happen to the child welfare system, both for the children, for families, for future generations, and for caseworkers, honestly. I think I saw a lot of people that really loved making a difference and ensuring child well-being that ended up leaving because it's like the system breaks you down.
What was one of the toughest moments for you in this job? I know it's a long time ago, but anything that comes to mind where you were just like, I need to do something to get myself back on track because, obviously I need to serve these people and help them, but it's a struggle.
There's two specific situations that come to mind. I had a child who had no family that would come forward to advocate for them, and just kind of watching that child linger in the system that wasn't supporting them. And I was seeing that child a lot, like going and visiting them because they were in a group home. I think just watching a kid sit and wait for a potential adoptive home, that was really hard. I had another case that was very, very severe, abuse and neglect that was happening, and it seemed like every corner it was just another issue, but due to extenuating circumstances in that case, it just was dragging on way longer than it should have. I'm hesitant to talk about that specific case just because it was a lot.
It's understandable. You don't have to get into details, but it seems like it's just a lot of trauma that you take on.
Yeah.
You talked about 76 kids at one
Mm-hmm.
point. I mean, and it's nonstop.
Yeah. I think in leaving DCS, there was a lot of guilt. It was hard to leave. I went back and forth on that decision for months and months. But it's hard because I knew I was doing what I needed to do as much as I possibly could. I didn't know if the next person that got the case would do what was right by the child or if it would just be another check mark.
Were there reactions from children when you let them know, sorry, it's my last day?
Yes. There was a lot of cases where you come onto the case either as like a transfer, the case was transferred to you and you're the new case manager, and I had multiple, specifically teenagers, look at me and be like, you're just another one, you'll be gone. And I think those cases, I really wanted those kids to realize, like, I'm here for you and I'm doing what I can. So leaving the kids that finally trusted me and like were working with me so I could like get them into therapy, and they were wanting to do better finally because they knew someone believed in them. Telling them I was leaving was some of the hardest conversations I've ever had. And a lot of the kids, I remember one child, she was young, but I had her the whole time I worked there, and she looked at me and said, but nobody's gonna fight for me anymore.
That's really hard.
Yeah.
You feel like you're abandoning them?
Yeah. I would say every day think about the kids that I worked for.
And what they're doing now, or how they're doing.
Or where they are. And I know sometimes I'd get updates after I left, and it got to a point where I was like, I don't want to know anymore because I don't know.
People in Arizona have questions specifically about 10-year-old Rebecca Baptiste and all the reports made to DCS over however many years about her parents allegedly abusing her, torturing her. Where do you think the disconnect is, or what's the issue there? Why does that many reports have to be made for anything to be done? And now she's gone.
The way that I saw investigations working was if it reaches a certain level of concern, if the report itself does not reach a certain threshold, it will be entered as a status communication. It'll just be there under the child's name.
Documenting that we talked about this.
Yeah.
That's not enough, though.
It's not.
Yeah.
And, I have called the hotline probably at least 100 times in my career, and a lot of those calls never got followed up on.
So who's above, who's taking the call and then saying, okay, we do need to, this has met the threshold? What's that title called of that person's job?
I believe it's the hotline specialist.
So that's one case. We talk about Zariah Dodd, who's been into numerous homes and somehow gets pregnant by a 36-year-old man at the time. People wonder, how does that even happen? I know group homes can't lock you in, but clearly there was awareness that there was a man on the outside, because her caseworker had found out through her. She was afraid, and that he was always armed, even allegedly with an AK-47, and would get her high and impregnated her. And a forensic exam is scheduled months out, 3 days after she ended up murdered on July 5th. So how does one find out about a serious issue like this in April 2025 and police are not getting involved right away? I know you may not have the clear answer on the case because it's not yours, but just are you surprised, or what are your thoughts at all on that?
I had a similar case with concerns for sex trafficking and older adults talking to my child. I think that should have been followed up on immediately.
Quickly.
I know.
In April.
In my experience with very similar situation, I went to the house, took the phone, took the child to the police station to be forensically interviewed. I think I got it scheduled quickly. At the time when I was working there, I was able to get them in.
So that is very similar.
Yeah.
Sex trafficking, very common.
Yeah.
With group home kids.
Yes.
And it's not a surprise, because there are predators out there, and there's no family base and foundation and environment, like you said. But is it as easy as them waiting outside in the car saying, hey, I can buy you some new shoes, get you a phone, things like that?
In my experience, what I experienced with the child on my caseload, yes. And I had in-depth conversation surrounding, this is a grown adult. They are not going to do anything positive for you. And I think kids just want someone to listen.
Love and attention, even if it may not actually be that.
Yeah. And I think when there are predators out there and we're aware of there is someone actively pursuing this child, personally I'd say, well, the kid needs to be moved somewhere that predator does not know where they are.
And I think they did. Obviously, Zariah got moved. She was pregnant, got moved to another group, but it's not hard to find someone. But the forensic exam, I just don't know why it's scheduled in July, from April. So we don't know, but we will find out at some point. Lastly, what would your advice be to current caseworkers at DCS?
Advocate for change. I think remember, no one gets into DCS casework just as a simple job. You get into it because you care. It's hard. It's hard to be in a role as an advocate, as a person that wants good for children and families, and to have to face systemic barriers. I think just advocating for the kids on your caseload is what you can do, and documenting what you're doing to ensure that, say you leave, there's notes of what happened to that child and what your experience was with them, because when a worker leaves, all the information goes with them unless it's documented. But we need to just advocate for better for Arizona's children and families, because if we don't, those kids are the future and we want good for them.